Russia is dealing with a big blow as it marks 50 days since the start of its deadly and destructive invasion of Ukraine. Its flagship Black Sea missile cruiser has been seriously damaged, and Kyiv is taking credit. Meantime, Moscow has issued its sternest warning to NATO should Finland and Sweden join the military alliance. Live to Ukraine and Latvia in just a moment. But first, a look at what's happening on the ground.
A setback for Russia as it continues its war on Ukraine. The flagship of its Black Sea fleet has been seriously damaged following an explosion on board. Ukraine says it had hit the vessel with 2 cruise missiles. The loss of the missile cruiser Moskva is a blow to Russia's military. Its Navy activities in the Black Sea are crucial to supporting land operations in the south of the country, where it's battling to seize full control of the port city, Mariupol. Heavy shelling also continues in Kyiv, Donetsk, and Zaporizhia, as Russia readies for a new assault in the eastern Donbas region. At least 4 civilians have been killed and several others wounded in Kyiv.
Важливо, що президенти відвідали Бородянку в Київській області, де на власні очі вони побачили, що наробили окупанти. Для президентів це ще один аргумент, щоб жорсткіше наполягати на реально відчутних санкцій проти Російської Федерації. Передусім потрібне нафтовий ембарго і чітка готовність Європи до відмови від усіх російських енергоносіїв. Євросоюз має припинити спонсорувати російську воєнну машину.
Ukraine's army has warned there is a constant threat of Russian missile strikes across the country. Moscow has even threatened to attack Kyiv again, just days after retreating from the Ukrainian capital. It says if Ukrainian forces don't stop attacking Russian territory in the south, its forces will retaliate by hitting command centers in Kyiv.
Ворог продовжує нарощування авіаційного угруповання поблизу східного кордону нашої держави. Посилює артилерійські підрозділи, оптимізує наявні системи управління, розвідувального та медичного забезпечення. Зберігається постійна загроза застосування противником ракетного озброєння по всій території України.
Meanwhile, humanitarian corridors allowing the evacuation of civilians are set to reopen, a day after all of the routes were halted due to heavy fighting. Ukrainian authorities have urged those in the southeastern Donbas region to move west for fears of a large-scale Russian offensive in the area.
Philip Crowther joins us live now from Lviv. Philip, more reports of Ukrainian troops surrendering in Mariupol now. Is the city close to falling into Russian hands?
Well, it's appeared that way, hasn't it, for quite a few days. The Russian Defense Ministry saying today that over 100 Ukrainian soldiers have surrendered. That's on top of the over 1,000 that Russia claimed had surrendered already over the last 48 hours or so. Of course, we have no clarity as to when this might have happened. There is video that has been played on Russian state television of what would appear to be soldiers with their hands up, maybe surrendering, but we can't date that video exactly and couldn't confirm who exactly those men are on that video. It is pretty much impossible right now to independently verify what is happening on the ground in Mariupol, because it is so dangerous, because it is being fought over right now, because it has been besieged since almost the very start of this invasion of Ukraine. The Ukrainian side, by the way, an advisor to the Ministry of Internal Affairs denies all of this, denies that there was a surrender of Ukrainian troops in the first place. We don't know exactly what is happening on the ground in Mariupol right now, except that it would appear that that city is still being fought over as we speak. Now, this is also a city from which civilians are still trying to escape, and there is a humanitarian corridor open today out of Mariupol. Now, these are corridors that are always agreed upon between the two warring factions, between the Ukrainian and the Russian side, and here's hoping, of course, that that corridor stands today, that it is respected, that the ceasefire that goes with this corridor is respected. People would have to make their way by private car out of there, only to be able to get onto humanitarian convoys and buses thereafter. The good news is that there are humanitarian corridors out of several cities in the eastern Donbas region as well today, but it is considered dangerous, and people have been told to get out as quickly as possible.
And Philip, it has been 50 days since this invasion began. Has the fighting, most of it now, moved to the east?
Yes, it has, despite that warning from the Ukrainian authorities saying this exactly, that the threat, of the use of missiles throughout Ukraine is still there. And, of course, we've seen that over the last few days and weeks. Even though we know that there is a major Russian offensive to come in the east, in that Donbass region, that doesn't mean there haven't been missile strikes in other cities, in other regions. Here in western Ukraine, there have been missile strikes. There have been missile strikes, according to the Russian Defense Ministry, at least. Also near the capital city, Kyiv. And then today we know, according to the governor of Odessa, of that region, that there have been explosions in that city of Odessa in the south of the country. Of course, it was off that city of Odessa in the Black Sea, where the Ukrainian authorities, the Ukrainian military say that they were able to hit that ship, the flagship of the Black Sea fleet of the Russian Navy, with missiles. We'll have more on that, of course, later on. But all of these are signs that this is a war that hasn't entirely shifted to the east. The main ground operation will be happening there, but there is that warning that there could be more missile strikes and more attacks throughout the country.
Philip, thank you for that update. Philip Crowther there.
And Laura Mekin-Ishwar joins us live from Riga, Latvia. Laura, as we just heard from Philip there, the Black Sea Russian flagship, the Moskva. Moscow says it is still afloat. Ukraine's military claims the warship has started to sink. If it is in fact sinking, how big would this mark as a setback to the Russian invasion?
Well, the Moskva is the flagship of the Russian fleet. They're seen as the one that was going to be able to repel perhaps even US attacks if necessary. It's been there as a symbol as well, part of a blockade to try to prevent trade and movement through the Black Sea, effectively cutting off the south of Ukraine and the cities along that coastline from getting any trade or supplies into those regions. And we've heard from those fighting in those regions that they've been running out of food, out of water, out of supplies, and having those ships in that area is blocking any extras heading through the sea towards them via a shipping route. Now, of course, we've heard conflicting reports about what happened there to that ship. Ukrainian forces saying 2 of their missiles hit it, and that caused an explosion. And as you've said, they've said that it's sinking that ship. But the Russian Defense Ministry is denying that point blank, saying the ship is still buoyant. It wasn't hit. In fact, it was a fire that caused an explosion of ammunition on the ship. And they're trying to work out exactly what happened and what the situation is right now. But of course, conflicting reports. And again, it appears that the Russian government is trying to counteract any statements of success from Ukraine and the West to try to keep morale on their side up as well.
Laura, well, peace talks between Russia and Ukraine are essentially stalled since the emergence of alleged war crimes by Russia. What's happened to these talks? Are the two sides no longer even talking to each other?
Yeah, President Vladimir Putin said that they'd hit a dead end yesterday, that was it, essentially, even though Ukrainian advisors were sending out the message that they believed they could still continue, that actually Russia was putting out this rhetoric, making public statements to try to force Ukraine and other parties within any discussions that might take place to do what Russia wanted. Now, there have been a number of humanitarian corridors made available today. They appear, according to the Ukrainian side, to be offered up to civilians that may want to leave the country. Obviously, in the past weeks, those have not been kept safe. Russia has not abided by the ceasefire and allowing those civilians to leave the country safely. So everything seems to be up in the air completely. However, there has been another statement made by Russia regarding Finland and Sweden and their potential bids to join NATO, saying that they, if they did join the alliance, would also become opposition for Russia as well, another country to take on, if you like. And we know that NATO's boundaries has been one of the hard lines for Russia. They didn't want NATO to expand any further, didn't want any more countries in Europe to join the alliance. And so this move potentially by Sweden and Finland will be disruptive for the Kremlin.
Thanks for that. Laura Mekin-Ishwar speaking to us from Riga, Latvia.